The information shared on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While we discuss topics related to mental health, well-being, and emotional support, we are not providing therapy or medical services. Always seek the advice of your physician, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health condition. If you are in crisis, feeling unsafe, or need immediate support, please contact a mental health professional or emergency services in your area. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organizations or institutions.
Get inspired, get motivated with Marcia EarHart and the M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast.
Something that I take pride in is trying to be forward thinking outside the box, challenging myself. And as I challenge myself, hopefully I challenge you.
Find Marcia on Twitter and Instagram at Marcia_EarHart. On Facebook at Marcia EarHart Presents.
We're going to talk health, wealth, fitness, mental health, financial, lots of different things that can empower you as you seek out the ambition that you're pursuing.
Or get everything Marcia at MarciaEarHart.com.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to what is slated to be the final live episode of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. And we're going to wrap it up with the ambition shows, which by now you should know has been an extension of the show because I like to look at mental wellness from a fresh and forward-thinking perspective. And this podcast is all about pulling back that veil of self-doubt and sabotage that plagues so many of us in this life. But I realized part of, if I really wanted people to truly understand what that meant, just giving you tools and talking about it often wasn't enough. And that's where the birth of the ambition shows came from. I wanted to put people in front of you who have taken their passion, aligned it with their purpose, and pushed it forward with their ambition and motivation. And I have had on 12 guests leading up till today, and the 13th is going to end it in the most amazing way. And it's so relevant to where we are right now at this time of the year. But with that being said, if you are a first-time listener or viewer, I always say, buckle up for safety. Just because we might say something in the podcast that makes you go, or I didn't see that coming, or I really felt some way about that. And if you happen to be a returning listener or viewer, well, you know how we do things here. I always say, grab pencil, paper, jot down things that may cross your mind, grab a beverage, some coffee, tea, get comfortable, because if you've taken time to listen, you want to get something from it. If you've missed any of the former episodes, don't panic at all. You can always find them if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I always tell people that is the easy thing to do because then you'll be notified when we're having all the episodes. It's M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. I actually finally got it together, everybody. I have a shared platform for all of my social media. So you can find me on Instagram and X as well as Facebook at M.A.Y.A Speaks to You, the same handle for the YouTube channel. And if you want to find episodes to listen to as well, the former ones, because there's more than just the ambition shows, you can always find my episodes on iTunes, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spotify. If it's a podcast platform, you can probably find me. And I want to say this, I am highly appreciative to all the people who have come on board and have began listening to the show. We have picked up listeners in Mozambique, Tanzania. We've got more cities picking up in Sweden. And of course, across the country, we've got California and Michigan and Texas, and it keeps growing. So thank you to everybody for the support. I appreciate that so much. I also want to say that if you don't know by now, you can always go to my website for everything M.A.Y.A. It's www.maya-speaks.com. And there's two things on there I take a lot of pride in. The first is the inspirational blog that I post only once a week on Wednesdays. I want to give you one thought to really process for the week. And it's something that can be definitely something that could be a shift in the way you think. This is why I don't like to have you think about something every day, a different thought. I want you to dig deep and process something I give to you. The other thing that's actually on my website that I'm super proud of is my menopause blog, Me on Pause. Anybody who's listened to the show by now knows I am the poster child for menopause. Literally. But what I found in that journey is there's so much that women do not know about menopause. But wait, I've made a shift with this too. I also realized there's a lot that men don't know about menopause. I realized I was speaking to the ladies about what they were struggling with. Well, somebody's wife or sister or mother, whatever it might be, could be struggling as well. So we should inform the fellas, just like we're informing the ladies. And fellas, I have something coming for you in 2026. You also have your form of menopause called andropause that doesn't get a lot of attention. I'm going to step up and make sure I start sharing that information with you as well. So make sure you check out those two things that are on my website. Another thing that I launched very like midway through the year that I haven't talked a ton about is actually my app. It's the M.A.Y.A experience. It's another thing, once again, that can put everything about M.A.Y.A in the palm of your hands. So you can find it in the iTunes store, Apple Podcasts, and the Amazon stores right now. I try to do something to make it easy for you. I put the QR codes that if you scan, you'll be able to find them. I also will drop it in the comment sections, the direct links you can click and you can download based on if you have an iPhone or if you have an Android. But again, this is taking M.A.Y.A on the go. Everything is right there, from the podcast, the blogs are all right there. So it's even easier now to tap in and listen and get something that I'm trying to share with you on the app. So make sure you download that as well. So with that being said, we are, like I said, wrapping up the year. And this is like the live episode I'm going to have. I might jump on and kind of close some things out, but not sure at this point. But this episode is powerful. It's Let's Talk Grief, Trauma, and Healing with our grief guru, Marcia EarHart, who is absolutely amazing. So many people don't begin to understand what the idea of grief really means. I always tell people grief is not about just the loss of a life. It could be something that has impacted you greatly. And as we bring on Marcia, she's going to really be able to talk to us and help us to understand what that really means, because so many people often do not know. Marcia is a certified life, grief, trauma, brain, and mental health coach. She's a mediator, an author, speaker, and a HeartSync minister. You're going to learn more about what all of that means as she comes on. She is the founder of the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, which is, I would say, a safe space for those looking to heal from trauma and grief. Marcia has transformed her own trauma and grief and tragedy into her passion and purpose to help others to be able to heal from many of the same things. So without further ado, let's bring to the ambition stage Marcia EarHart.
Hey,
Hello.
Maya.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing today?
Oh, not too bad for a Monday. I've absolutely been looking forward to this for a couple different reasons. Because in so many ways, people truly do not understand grief, even though I speak to it so often in many different dimensions when I do my show. But before we jump into that, tell us a bit more about who is Marcia EarHart. Tell us about the Sterling Rose Sanctuary so my listeners can get familiar with who you are.
Well, I love life and I love people, and I live very passionately, very on. I enjoy my family tremendously. I have 2 adult kids that I get to do life with quite often. And I love the beach. So if anybody's looking for me when I am off, if I can get to the beach, that's where I am, spending my time, enjoying and just breathing in and releasing. The Sterling Rose Sanctuary is a calling that was placed on our life. And that happened around 2017. We had a loss of our oldest son in 2014. He was 21 in law school in Naples, Florida. And we started the process of dealing with our own implosion of profound loss. Not just the loss of his life, but the loss of his presence in every aspect of our lives. So friendships and just his work and his schooling. And so friends that incorporated his life with our life. So we began that by, first of all, allowing ourselves to go on and admit we too died in that moment. Because when we experience a loss, we need to acknowledge and give permission to grieve that loss. And there were stages. And when I say stages, I'm not talking about 5 stages, because they're not 5 stages. Kubler-Ross is misquoted quite often in that sense, that that's actually the 5 stages of death and dying. But when I'm talking about we were going through the stages, we all 4 of us living in the house, and my other oldest son, two of them were outside of the house, but the ones of us living inside, we had to learn what triggered each other and what promoted healing to each other. So there were some very real conversations on a daily basis as to how can I heal with the things that I need, yet not trigger you. So that was a big part of our daily moving through the grieving process. And then as we hit around 2017, the Lord said, you need to have a place, the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. And the rose, because we cannot have the rose without the thorns. And so in the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, we actually unpack the thorns that happen in any aspect of loss, grief, trauma that we experience, so that we can experience and enjoy each petal in that rose. And within the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, it has several different components to minister to the body, the soul, the mind, and the spirit. So when we start with the mind, we start talking about the negative things that come in with grief, because quite often they're negative things that people start incorporating and speaking and living out of. So we want to unpack that and replace it with what is true, and releasing those lies, releasing the toxins that are coming in with wrong information. It's so vitally important, because when we are speaking negativity and we're believing negativity, it affects our body, it affects our organs, and we help people release from within their organs. The lungs actually hold grief. So our tagline is, we help people breathe again, move again, and live again. Why? Because when you're grieving, you have shallow breaths and you're not getting the oxygen that your body and your brain need. And so we do some diaphragmatic breathing to help people release and breathe in deeply, and then to have that oxygen, and then to exhale all those toxins. And then we want them to move. And so sometimes people become very sedentary in their grief. So we want them to get outside, to reconnect with nature, and to allow themselves to have a space where they can be ministered to and experience life around them. And what we've noticed, Maya, is when we start with just a little movement, all of a sudden people realize, I need this. And they'll start doing more movement. And as time goes by, as we're working through those losses and working through the trauma, then people are able to start living again in their created design, which is our desire, to see people live with a hope and in the grieving process, not with a spirit of grief, which I think as a society, we would say most people live with a spirit of grief.
This is true. We are talking grief, trauma, and healing with Marcia EarHart of the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. You said something that most people, Marcia, do not understand about grief and loss and trauma, is that it sits at a cellular level. It seeps deep inside of us. And this is one of the things for me specifically, when I work with people and I realize either the trauma or grief is so deep and we've done what we can do in talk therapy, I will then recommend them to a higher level of care. And often I will refer them to those types of modalities that can help work with someone on that cellular level, whether it's EMRT, it might be somatic, different things, breath work, different types of things that works deeper than just expressing how they're feeling, but realizing that trauma sits at that deeper level. On your website, you have some things that I want to frame this conversation more for people to help them to understand. And there were 3 things on your website that really stood out to me. The first one was a stat you shared that 70% of adults experience a traumatic event in their lives. And that event could entail loss of a child, a spouse or loved one, their health, home, or even the loss of a dream. Most people would never think that somehow those things are traumatic. They would see maybe the loss of a child, okay, or a spouse, but people often will not look at their health, the loss of their health, or even their home, or loss of a dream, their job, their dream job. They don't see those as traumatic kind of events. Speak to that to help people understand what really is the idea of trauma.
Trauma is anything that has an effect and embeds in our mind and our body where we are not able to return back to joy immediately. And some people would call it a loop, that they loop back into a pattern of thinking when they have experienced something, whether they're making an excuse that, no, that's not, I didn't experience that. That really didn't affect me. Or, well, there are things that are other people have encountered far worse, and they're not acknowledging the impact that it has made on them. So we have to be real with ourselves that anything that happens where I no longer am able to live in the way that I was before, that can impact me in different ways. How am I dealing with it? Am I choosing to deal with it? And that I am choosing to embrace the new thing. And I don't think we can really embrace the new thing, Maya, until we deal with the reality of what has impacted us. So as you were talking, the loss of dreams is very real for people. Some people hit a certain age and they just implode because they're at an age that all of a sudden, all these dreams and these goals that they had for their lives, they're nowhere near that. And they may be dismissive of it and just say, well, it is. No, we have to go in and really work with that so that you can release that, because it does go into the body. The body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score.
Every emotion has a place that it embeds within our body. So, for example, the liver holds on to anger. So we do work with releasing those emotions from those parts, as well as from the mindset that has come in there, allowing for you now to be able to return to joy, allowing you to be able to embrace new things that are coming into your life so that you can welcome those things.
You know, you said something that I think is so powerful. And if there's takeaways within every podcast, it's the body keeps the score. And one of the things I always say to people when they'll say, well, I've done this, I've done that, nothing's working. And I always say, you know, it gets to a point in your life when the struggle becomes real, that you have to think about doing a mental, an emotional, and physical detox. Now, people often get the idea of a physical detox. Oh, I'll change my diet, I'll do this. But when you talk about the idea of doing a mental and emotional detox, a lot of people get stumped on that because, to be honest, it might be a little bit harder than the physical one because it requires a level of commitment and honesty and truth with yourself to be able to even do that many people struggle with. Something else that jumped out on your website that I thought was a nugget was 85% of counselors, and I can relate to this, the client caseloads are rooted in unresolved grief. Can you speak to that?
Yes, and it has changed. The statistics on that have changed. It's about 95% now. These statistics are 2 years old. We've seen a surge in this ever since COVID, and as we continue to get numbers and ask professionals, most people do not acknowledge areas that they may have grief and loss. They may not even recognize that it is such. Just like you were talking about dreams, someone may not think that that's a loss. So what happens is if I don't acknowledge that and I don't work through that, and I keep doing life and I have other losses and other things that impact my soul, then it becomes complicated, complex grief. Therefore, I'm going to find myself having some struggles in my life, maybe emotionally feeling more drained, having less capacity, even physically. And then all of a sudden, it could be where it's affecting my relationships around me. And I find myself going to someone to talk to. It's over the unresolved grief that was never handled or has not been addressed. And quite often those numbers represent individuals of years, not just something that just happened. It's been years where it has become complicated, complex, and therefore they're needing to unpack all of that. So what I want to say to everyone is it is so important to love yourself well and to take care of yourself and to honor the things in your life that are going on and to give space for healing, because everybody deserves healing. And to go take care of yourself and heal. Don't put it off. Don't think I can't do it. It's really not a big deal. I'll just talk to my friend. No, don't do that, because your friend isn't going to be able to give you the tools and the resources that really need to happen for you to have healing.
Yes, that piece right there. And trying to reshape people's idea of what it means to be in therapy or any type of seeking help. People always have that mindset of, well, I could just talk to a friend or a family member. And that might be where we start initially when we discover something is on our minds. But they're not going to have the tools and resources, like you said, to really help a person maybe truly navigate that. And let's be honest, there could even be some bias or even judgment to it, that they may not be prepared, or they're definitely not equipped to be able to give you what you need to navigate that. And the thing I always say to people is, if you think about our lives, we seek out expertise in so many things. You don't just say, I think I'll go to the random person because I have a toothache. No, you go to a dentist because that's what they do. You go see your doctor if you're not feeling well, so that you can be diagnosed and it can be treated. I'm not sure why we get to the most important thing that runs the ship, that why we think somehow that can be treated without the same type of care and attention. And knowing that you should seek out help. It takes a lot to take that step. I want to post a comment from one of our listeners saying, J.Pa said, you make a great point, Marcia. I understand having a plan, but just because things don't go as planned doesn't mean you are a failure.
And Absolutely. Yes. And a lot of times, J.Pa, they're thinking that they have failed because they didn't reach that plan. And, we have to realize our plans are not always going to be executed to the degree we want. We've got to have the ability to let go and to live in other spaces, and to realize that there can be another plan, a better plan, if we allow for that and we deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I often will ask people as they sit in therapy and they talk about feeling a failure or that they're not achieving the things in life that they thought they would. My first question always, was it your plan? Or was it a plan that was handed to you? Because, often our core values come from obviously our initial first tribe that we have in life, which is our family. And we may come to discover that maybe some of those things don't carry forward with us, but yet we've lived our whole life trying to achieve something that never truly resonated with the essence of who we are. And I think that's a big part of self-discovery, especially when people step into therapy to say, I think I just realized I've been living this double life only because I thought I had to be this person, even though deep down inside, I didn't want to be that person. And that's the growth part, that when people can accept change, and change is not easy. Another stat on your website that to me was good is 65% of Americans are grieving the loss of someone close to them in the last 3 years.
Yes. And those are old stats too. But what I want to say is, most people, because we're not a society that has been well trained with tools and resources to grieve, they dismiss and they go inward because people do not know how to be in the space with someone grieving. That's about us as a society knowing how to love well with others who are grieving and let them grieve. We don't need to provide an answer for them. I'm going to say that again. We don't need to provide an answer for them. What they need is our presence. What they need is someone who gives safe space. And that's why the Sterling Rose Sanctuary exists, because we want to be that safe space where you can come and grieve, but also have healing in your loss, but not because I feel the need to tell you something, but because I'm listening to you and engaging and present in your pain.
And there you have it. If you missed the beginning of the show, she talked about what gave life to the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. And I said almost every guest that has been on the Ambition show has had some adversity, tragedy, or trauma that they have found a way to make their purpose, and they are passionate about it. And I thought, opposed to try to help people understand how to get there, let me show you people who did it. Because often people see the finished product, Marcia. They see someone successful. They don't see the work that person poured into it, or maybe even the reason that prompted them to start that journey. And I was like, every journey has a starting place, and it probably doesn't look like most people think that it does. And I start bringing on people who were sharing all these things, how their adversity gave birth to something amazing, and they're all helping other people. So let's say someone shows up to your door, the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. What does that look like? How do you work with them?
Well, we have two sides of that. One, I work with people all over the US and in 6 countries, and I'm on the phone with them addressing the trauma, the losses, the grief that they're coming in. And we do work through the phone where they are releasing the trauma, releasing the grief, and being able to step into new patterns. And we have a whole side that when we have a place, which we're fundraising for a place for the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, but a lot of the work we can still do in aspects like the thorn and rose room, which that's the unpacking of the thorns, being able to recognize the rose, working in the butterfly room, which is really about how we have had this situation in life and we're in a cocoon, we're cocooned in, and there's a transformation going on. So as we're in that transformation, let's look at what traditions, what aspects of life in a situation are triggering that we could let go of and incorporate new things and embrace those new things. What things do we want to bring forward with us so that when we are transformed, we can emerge into that? And we unpack a lot of things in each person's life because they're so different. If it's about dreams, we look at, okay, what were your dreams? Well, let's talk about what are you dreaming about now? Because what happens is if we didn't have fulfilled dreams, we've stopped dreaming. Even for people who have had loss of a person in their life, they may stop dreaming. So we talk about what does it look like to dream again? Let's talk about some of the dreams moving forward. What would that look like to you? Let's learn how do you want to incorporate some of these? So bringing and breathing life back into that space. And then I talk to them about whole health eating, because when people have been grieving or in loss or trauma, they have some very unhealthy eating patterns. And we really want you to take great care. So get off the carbs and the sugars. Let's do some whole eating. Let's find some things, new things to freshen up your life so that you are able to release toxins and have healing inside. And then we talk about exercise, somatic movement, as far as doing some stretching, whether it's yoga. We talk about frequency. All body is all frequency, and each part of our body has a different frequency. So how we can immerse ourselves with certain frequencies that will help healing. And we really encourage people to listen to whole tones that have been in trauma and stress, because the frequency is healing to the brain and the body. And there's something that is calming, and it starts giving a resurgence to those places that have been so deeply wounded and even maybe shut down and turned off.
There you go. And people often don't see things that way when it comes to trauma or even healing, because this is something that's emotional and mental. And of course, this is where people get very, kind of rigid. Thinking outside the box isn't easy for them to do. But this is why you go to someone who can help you to expand the way you're thinking to help you heal. Because as you said, loss comes in so many ways. It could be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of a home. It could be the loss, like you said, of a dream. It could be the loss of a loved one, whether it be because they're no longer with us physically, or it could be the ending of relationships or friendships. Yes. And when I say that, we enter into a time of the year where people really fall very deeply into their emotions when it comes to the holiday season. They feel often very alone because, let's say, maybe they don't have a good relationship with their family. And so they're watching everyone around them appear to have great relationships with their family. They watch too much TV. And if you watch a Hallmark channel, you're going to believe that your life is just awful. So they see all this happiness and love around the holidays and it feels like it's missing for them. Or there could be the situation where someone is grieving the loss of a loved one. I myself, this will be, an anniversary year of losing a loved one who actually died on Christmas Day. You know, I've worked through it the whole year, but as I move closer to that anniversary date, it just feels so much more heavier. Talk about the holiday season and how maybe people can start to rethink or retool how they're approaching this.
Well, first of all, 99.9% of the people are not sitting around singing Kumbaya, having a wonderful gathering. I need people to understand that. We are deeply flawed human beings, and I work with hundreds and hundreds of people, and I can assure you that most people are living and maybe making it through dysfunction. But I think that's a couple of reasons why there's so much stress. One, they're stressed because they're going to be around the dysfunction. The other is they're stressed because they're wanting to create a kumbaya moment. Mm-hmm. And neither of those are perfect scenarios. And so when we are getting close to the holidays, what I think is a wonderful, and I help many of my clients do this, think out of the box. Where can you go? Let's do something different this year. Let's not stay in the place where you will be triggered in your pain. Let's think of something that could incorporate a way that you could acknowledge yet celebrate in a space that's new or that's familiar that you haven't been to in a while. And then make that plan. So the first year after the loss of our son, we did not do Thanksgiving, Christmas in our home. We went out because I didn't want to keep seeing the empty chair. I knew, and it's like, let's do something where we can enjoy and we can incorporate this. And what your audience doesn't know is in 2019, we had a second loss of our second oldest son who was murdered by his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. So we've done this journey multiple times and we've had to implement the very things I'm encouraging your audience to do. When the date comes, that's when you become overwhelmed because you did not pre-think a plan. We didn't put something in place that, you know what, I'm not going to do this today. I'm going to go spend my day in the mountains trekking. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm just going to go visit some friends who have invited, and it's okay. Allow yourself to do things that are new and yet be around people that really respect your boundary. As far as if you can't stay in the room with them and you need to leave, you can, and there's no judgment. See, we have to choose wisely, but yet we also have to implement and not just wait till it comes. So we did this in pre-thought. Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations, all of those days were pre-thought out as to how we were going to handle them, where we were going to go, what we were going to do. And we could just go out for a walk, but we did something to get out of that space so that we're not sitting, ruminating, allowing pain, sorrow to consume us.
Yes. Now that's, the grieving of two of your children. Marcia, there's one thing that people always say, and I will never be able to understand it, but I, to a degree, can totally understand when people say when you lose children, like that's a loss that people will never understand. And you are a testament. If anybody says they can't do it, again, this is what the ambition shows are about. You took your tragedy and your sadness and you transformed it into something that helped you and your family heal. And you realize other people also need these tools to be able to heal. Because one thing that you have said, and I say it all the time, the way that we are taught to grieve in the Western world it's not something that is healthy to me. It's very closed off. And it's often set up that we would want to retreat and isolate ourselves away from others. Someone posed a question here, and I've actually had this question in therapy from people. They said, hi, Marcia, is there a time that grieving a loss of a loved one should get easier? So I once had someone say to me in therapy, I lost my husband 2 years ago. He was an illness. It was anticipated. And I still can't seem to get past this. And when I spoke to another provider, he looked at me and said, you should be past this by now. It was 2 years ago. What's your thoughts? How do you answer that for someone about, is there a time frame or a timeline with grieving?
First of all, I think it depends on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on how the individual allows themselves to enter the process of walking through that grief. Having lost 2 sons and a mother in the last 11 years and experienced some other losses in my life, what I can say, the rawness should not be there. If I'm healing, if I am truly healing, and I want to make that clear, because this is not a judgment, this is about healing. If you are healing and you are putting yourself in the place that you want to have healing, then you're incorporating that grief in positive ways, that person is being incorporated in you, or that situation where you can move forward, breathing, moving, and living with resilience. Mm-hmm. And what I'm going to say is, we're going to have moments where we are going to cry because we miss. Mm-hmm. Give yourself permission. But
yes,
on the flip side, experience the joy that the person was in your life, because this was about a person. Mm-hmm. And give thanks and look at all the things, the great things that were deposited in that relationship or the experience. And even if you didn't have the person long enough, find the things where gratitude and thankfulness can be expressed. Because to me, as we do that, then the missing changes mm-hmm. in the depth of how we miss.
Mm-hmm. Another question from a listener. This is from Ashlo Wren. How do you keep it from consuming and becoming your identity?
I'm going to answer this from a spiritual place. First of all, my identity is in Christ. So as a believer, I know my identity, but everyone, your identity is not from the trauma and the grief and the losses you experienced. You already were before. Mm-hmm. So even if you're not a believer, you already were. And you have to go back to, who am I? Who was I? Who am I? Not necessarily who was I, but who am I? What makes mm-hmm. me me? So, yes. Sweetie, you need to go back to what makes you you, what makes you laugh, what makes you joyful, what makes you the embodiment of you, because there's only one you. And the reason, and if it's consuming, is because a spirit of grief comes in to consume us. See, there's hope in grieving. Hope in grieving is that I hold on to, that this is not always going to be, and it won't, because I'm not in the same place I was yesterday. I'm not in the same place I was 12 years ago, 11 years ago when I lost my son. I'm not in that rawness. I'm able to engage and be in life. And sweetie, know that there are other people that love you and that want you and to experience you in their lives. And surround yourself with those people that can love you and embrace you and encourage you to be all that you can be, but are walking with you with the patience and the love, holding space for you while you're hurting.
Yes, that's very well said in regards to whether people are spiritual or not. And many people do find our way back to that because they realize there's something that sits, that you were created and made to be who you were. Yes. Now, the things that were bestowed upon us by our fellow man, we can't always control that, but it's what do we do with it? And it's about finding those spaces that are safe, removing things from your life that are toxic and not healthy. And sometimes, Marcia, I'm not sure if you ever said this when you work with people, sometimes the people you have to remove from your life is family. Because Correct. They can be the ones that weigh the heaviest, or the ones that may not be the most forgiving, or they may be very judgmental. And if you find that you have tried to create a space to exist, but yet it constantly seems like you have to retreat to find peace, it sounds like that's a space where you should not be moving.
Right. And I do want to say one more thing. Trauma should never define us. It should be a redefining line, but never a defining line. There is a difference.
Yes. And that's important, that a lot of people are living their lives through the lens of their trauma.
Yes.
And I feel when they step back and they stop looking through that lens, there's a whole world out there. The lie that you've been told that you could only see so much through that lens. But when you pull away and you actually look through your own eyes, you can see what you've been missing because it's from your view. But it's also the way you think about what you see. And that's the other piece that sometimes I think people struggle with. You mentioned some of the things you do at the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. And as I was digging deeper into and learning more about you, I saw this music piece. I love music. And so I saw this music piece and I was listening to some of the stuff and I was all teary. I said that to you. I was all teared up because it was very moving. And then you told me something that's very unique about how you use music as working with people when they come to the sanctuary. Tell my listeners more about that unique opportunity.
Well, there are two sides. There's music therapy, so movement. We really want people to experience the movement of the music. But also my son, who is an accomplished singer-songwriter, beat maker, he will work with individuals who cannot express their grief verbally and wants to write something, and he can help them put it into music, which is a beautiful way of expressing something that has impacted our life. Because what we found for our son is music became his healing tool.
His healing tool.
Yes. And we also have, an art therapy where artistically you can draw and create, because sometimes, again, we need another means in which to convey our loss and our grief. And so that aspect is not in place right now because we're still raising the funds for a place, but we certainly give some suggestions to individuals that are artistic and have that inclination of how to express themselves. But with the music, we really want for people to be able to express, and music is healing.
Music is healing. Yes.
Music is healing. And we really want it in the frequency that's healing, so that when they listen to that, not only are they able to hear what they wrote, but that there's a healing that comes with those words through that process.
Everyone, to learn more about Marcia and what she does at the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, of course, scrolling at the bottom, you can see the website, which is www.thesterlingrosesanctuary.us. But as I'm trying to make things easier, at the top of the screen, you'll see a QR code that you can scan, and that'll take you right to the website. So that makes it a little easier too, to kind of be able to get to Marcia and see all the wonderful and amazing things they're doing to help people heal through trauma and grief and loss, and to be reborn in a way that you want to be, to live your life. I always say, here we look to harness those things that can help people get that ambition and motivation to become and live the lives that they want to have, not just big goals, Marcia. I say, I want people to think about their lives every day, because every day is a gift. People always want to think so far into the future. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but appreciate the day that's given to you. And I know we had talked before the show about, holiday seasons are very hard for people. They struggle because you look around everywhere and it seems like the world is happy and you feel miserable. And you mentioned that, obviously one of the things, obviously coming to work with you, but also that you actually wrote a book that actually soft launched in May, but now is available in September of this year, called Gripping Grace in the Garden of Grief. And this is available in Amazon, of course, as everything else is. So you should check this out. But tell us a bit more about the book, kind of what prompted you to write it, like what readers can expect of this.
Well, the book really came out of my own experience of grieving, and it's a very raw account of my own emotions and how I dialogued that out loud. And I did that with the Father and Jesus. They were my go-to. I had a family that was experiencing what I experienced, and they were not the people I needed to be talking to. And so I went to the Lord, but I also asked him, please don't let me miss when you show up for me. And so he showed up, and I have all these beautiful pictures, and every single one of them is, he gave me out of a place of pain. And the writings in there are from a place where I write where my heart and my mind and my soul was in a space, and yet the transformation that happened in that space. And it's a companion. This is a book that's a companion for anyone that is grieving, that knows someone grieving, because grief is a lonely place. It doesn't matter who's around you. There's certain things within the grieving process that just feels lonely, because whatever's happened has taken an impact on you. And so someone else isn't you. They can't feel everything that you feel. They can't think everything. So I've had so many people reach out that have gotten this book, and the way it became known as the companion to grief is because that's what people started writing. Oh my word, this is a companion to grief. I love this. This has helped me so much. I've got one client, she's going through it her 10th time. She said, it has helped me heal in so many places. So my desire is for healing for everyone. I want everyone to be able to experience the healing. No one to be walking around in their pain, hurting and silent, and to know that there are people here who will walk beside you. We will. I don't want you walking the journey alone.
And that's the thing that's so beautiful about when people are willing to ask for help and to reach out, that they come to realize I'm not alone, that this is not a journey that I didn't have to walk by myself. Now, maybe initially the people I thought that might travel this road with me, turns out they were not maybe the best companions for the journey. But yet here it is, I found someone, or I found this book that can help me heal. Because you said something I think is often difficult, especially when you're grieving the loss of a loved one, is if everyone is grieving, it can get highly complicated because everyone grieves differently. Some people will shut their emotions off. Other people will turn their emotions on. And it can be a lot to try to navigate. And I think being able to say, this is how I grieve, this is how they grieve, but just creating that space sometimes just to listen and to not have the answer can be so important when people are deciding that they really, truly want to heal.
Well, and I want to address that because I do address in the book the loss of relationship with our son, the loss of his community, the loss of friends. In the second time when we lost our second son, we lost community. The book addresses, we choose whether to live from the tree of life or the tree of death. And as a family, we had 2 internal processors and 2 external processors. We had to sit down and talk about, for the ones that wanted to externally process, whoa, this is overload to those of us that are internally processing. We love you, we want to be supportive, but we've got to draw some boundaries. You need to go and talk to someone, and you cannot keep bringing it to me. That's not being rude and ugly. It's setting a good boundary. There are many people that they can go to and they can get help. And so we provided that resource, but we, again, keeping it real. So in grief, we're going to choose every single day, all day long, whether we live from the tree of life or the tree of death. And so to reframe our mind to live from the tree of life, we have to immediately take what is coming to our mind that is negative, untrue, false theology, and we have to acknowledge that. We have to deal with it and reframe it with what is true and what is right and what is good. And then we live in life. I don't want to live from death. I want to live from life. And so we experience that in our own lives too. I don't want everyone to think we were this perfect family. There were people living in death in our family. There were people living in life. There were his friends that were living in death. There were people living in life. I mean, it's a process, but the reality is my life isn't over. So I get to choose, do I want to live among the living or exist among the dead? I'm not done. We're going to exist among the living.
Yes. You said something that legitimately I'm going to say to people that if you didn't hear a single thing we talked about, what you just said was powerful. You can choose that you want to be and live from the tree of life or the tree of death. And I'll be honest, a lot of people, Marcia, probably have never looked at it that way. They go through life with blinders on and not seeing that life, what has been bestowed upon us, I always say is amazing, regardless to if you are religious or not. I always say God has given us the most amazing thing that can help you heal just by walking out your front door, because you see the cycle of life shows you that things, we see the seasons, how things, in the spring, they bloom, they're beautiful in summer, fall comes, it falls off, winter, they go, it kind of dies down, it comes back. We as people can have seasons the same way. The question is, what season are you struck in? Are you really trying to have a life where you allow yourself to blossom and to grow and to realize? I tell people, and I'm sure you probably say this too, look, let's be honest. You can heal and be healthy. That does not mean that life is not going to throw a curveball at you again. But Marcia, you are a testament. I'm going to say it again. The way that you decided to heal with the loss of your first son could probably never prepare you for the loss of the second, but it probably was something that helped you to navigate that a little bit easier.
Well, we just talked about that this past weekend. Actually, our whole family was able to navigate it a lot easier because we already had been implementing every single tool and resource that we had. And I think when you go through a situation, you have to understand, hey, we were in a battle, but when we come out, there's spoils that come with us. Now, we don't have to take them, but girl, we were taking every spoil with us out of that battle because we were determined we were the victors. We were being victorious. We were not going to be defeated, and we were not defeated. And even though we were hit again, and I'll tell you, as soon as the second death happened, the enemy said, well, now the Sterling Rose Sanctuary will not be any longer. And I mean, the Lord said, oh no, it's just gotten stronger. Mm-hmm. Because, and again, it's a choice, and you either choose to say, yes, I'm receiving that, and I'm going to live in that. And so I was talking this morning, and I think this is a great analogy for those people who are visual. If you picture a clear blue sky, and we've all seen the beautiful blue sky, and a storm comes, what's behind the storm? The clear blue sky. Does it take away the clear blue sky? No.
No.
It traveled through the clear blue sky.
It did.
And then it passes on away. That's what is trauma. The trauma does not take you away. It doesn't take you away. The trauma is passing by, but you've got to be the one to understand you were there all along. The trauma came, and you've got to allow yourself to move, let it move on by, and incorporate back that, okay, perspective-wise, the clear blue sky still exists. Mm-hmm. And the storms are going to come. But we have to understand the storm does not redefine and define that blue sky. It only is passing by.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I would tell you, you know what, if you think about it, even more, it's passing by, but even a storm may come in and seem like it could level everything in your life.
Yes.
But all it did was give you an opportunity to rebuild.
That's right.
To refocus. And perhaps sometimes those storms that we get, we might need those storms because maybe we needed to be pushed out of our comfort zone to grow, to change, to acknowledge that something is not right. And it's all about how we choose to look at things. If you're going to only see it through a negative lens, then that's all you're going to know, and that's how you're going to live. But adversity is going to happen. And so many amazing things have come from adversity. But we have to be willing to say, okay, I'm not particularly caring for this. I'm not comfortable with this, but I can work through this. Mm-hmm. And it's believing in yourself.
And I mean, even and part of the sanctuary and what we do is that we're there to help with the rebuilding of the ruins. Because we see ruins rebuilt all the time. Well, if we feel we have gotten through this impactful moment and we're in it, those ruins are rebuildable.
Yes.
So let it be rebuilt and let it stand firmer and let it shine brighter.
Mm-hmm. And think of it this way too. Perhaps the foundation that you originally was built on was never strong. And now you have an opportunity to go back and to build a stronger foundation that is made of the materials that you have decided to build it. As we come into this world as children, we do not often decide what tools and resources that we are given to grow and to mature. But once we become adults, Marcia, I always say we are the architects of our present and our future. We no longer have to keep carrying those blueprints that somebody else gave to us, especially if we feel the design is flawed. You can start over, you can start new. And that's not an offense to anybody because it's your life. And you don't have to sacrifice your happiness. And a lot of people struggle with this because they're so worried what others will think or somebody else may not be happy.
Well, we shouldn't be living our lives for other people first and foremost.
There you go.
I mean, that's a whole enablement and codependency right there. If you're in people pleasing, if you're living your life for someone else, then you're a people pleaser. And we are not here to please other people, because what happens is you're the one being sacrificed the whole time. And let me tell you something, those people certainly aren't knocking themselves out of the ballpark to please you, or you would not be feeling that way.
Bingo. Is acknowledging when you realize somebody hears you, they see you, they appreciate you, and they celebrate you. And if you're standing in the midst of a relationship, I don't care who it is, and you're not feeling those things, you have to go back and ask yourself, why am I here when I am not feeling this way, but yet I am giving it? It's hard.
And I want to say something. Most of those people think they're going to change someone. You will not change someone. You do not have the ability to change anyone. I can't change anyone. Maya, you can't change anyone. Nope. But what I can do is direct you to the one who can be the change maker. And I can tell you that there are things that need to change. And that is on you, the individual, to make the change, because you have to want it bad enough that you see that you have put yourself in that position where you are in a toxic, ongoing permanence in that moment of just hurting yourself. But you can change it. You can change it. But it's amazing to me because I have a lot of people pleasers that come in and a lot of enablers, and they're just like, well, I just don't know what would happen if I weren't around. Well, they existed before you were, and if they didn't, then they've got to learn now how to. There's just some realities. Yeah, we gotta speak truth. We've got to speak truth.
Check that box, Marcia. Check that box. Be honest, because that's what people struggle with. The fear of being alone. If I choose me,
yes.
Does that mean I'm going to lose everything? Well, if you choose you for all the right reasons and people decide to abandon you, what does that tell you about those relationships? They were meant to be looked at. All right. We sit in the holiday season. As we wrap up the show, any parting thoughts for my guest?
Yes. Be gentle with yourselves. Be kind. Allow yourself to decide for you what is best for you. Do not let other people try and convince you as to why you need to be with them, doing the things that you may not feel comfortable doing. Make sure that you're able, if you're in a place that you've already established, if I need to get up and leave. This is about where you are, not about pleasing other people in this place. This is your journey. And find the people that really do support you and that can encourage you and hold space for you. And even if it's just one person, that's enough. That's enough. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Well, and Marcia, amazing. Yes. You're spot on. You are absolutely spot on. Everyone, Marcia and I talked about this. We'll say it again. If you're out there buying Christmas gifts and you're looking for something to buy people, hey, if you know someone who's grieving or struggling, this might be the gift that could be life-changing for them. Marcia's book, Gripping Grace in the Garden of Grief. And as many readers have said, it has become a companion to help them navigate loss, but also something that they've come back and read more than once. It's available on Amazon like everything else in the known world is. So, hey, grab a copy for yourself if you're struggling with something, or if you have somebody else you feel like, hey, they could use this. Marcia, one of the things I'm starting to do with a lot of people is I'm starting to encourage them to have book clubs. And I feel like this could be a good book club book that people could share what they've learned and just takeaways and things of that. Because often when people don't sit alone, healing looks a lot different if you're willing to allow others to be part of that process with you.
I agree with that. And I think it's good when someone else can identify with your emotion. And grief is very much about the emotions that one is going through in the process, if they allow themselves to express it.
Absolutely. And that's that. All right, everybody. This has been the last live episode of what specifically were the ambition shows, which are an extension of Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition. I wanted to bring people to you that could really have amazing and powerful stories. So this was Marcia EarHart. Your story has been empowering. I've learned so much. And again, so much can come from grief and loss. Like you said, you create hope. And that's something a lot of people don't think about. Idea that somehow hope can spring from grief or loss. Yes, it can. So this is where you can find the Sterling Sanctuary online, www.thesterlingrosesanctuary.us. Of course, you can scan the QR code at the top of the page as well. And that'll be another way that you can connect with Marcia and the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. Again, Marcia, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everything you shared with my listeners, your energy. You are nothing short of amazing. I'm sure you know it, but I just want to make sure I say it more times than not in the course of this interview, because you are one of those, you are a force to be reckoned with, because you took so much pain and transformed it and to help other people to find something to help them heal as well.
Well, Maya, thank you. And I just want to tell your audience, I do pray they have a very sweet, tender holiday season, and that they are kind to themselves.
Yes. Be kind to yourselves. All right, everyone. This is Marcia EarHart, wrapping up the ambition shows. Everyone, again, I have had such amazing guests. As I had said before, if you happen to miss any episodes, you can always find them in the iTunes, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spotify podcast platforms. Just search Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition. You can find them there. You can always listen to episodes, of course, via the website. Just go to www.maya-speaks.com, and all things Maya are there. Make life a little easy for yourself too. Subscribe and share my YouTube channel, Maya Speaks to You, as well as I finally got it together. I have shared platforms, so you can always find any of my social media stuff with the same handle. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on IG and X as well. So that's how you get there. But of course, the website's easy. Remember, I'm also pushing, check out the 2 pieces of my website I love. I have 2 things on there that I'm really proud of. The inspirational blog, both are posted on Wednesdays. Give you 1 thought a week to process for inspiration, not an everyday thing. I want you to chew on it. I want you to process it, to really gain something from it. And of course, there's the Me on Pause blog, which is my menopause blog. Everything about menopause that people should know. Lady, it's for you. But fellas, I'm telling you to check it out too, because if there's a woman in your life and she's going through this change, you might find some things out that might help manage or navigate those relationships a lot easier. Because I'm going to tell you something. It's not easy going through menopause. So I encourage, hey, go ahead, check it out, because you might get some nuggets. But in 2026, I'm going to be fair and balanced on this, fellas. I'm going to start approaching andropause. That is your version of menopause. I know, go figure. We're menopause and you're andropause, because you go through some changes as well that a lot of people are not informing you about. And I want to be that person to help you out. So until next time, everyone, remember, your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So make the most of every single day. Be well. Stay safe. And of course, everybody, keep doing what you're doing and being absolutely amazing. So until next time, I'll see you on the other side of 2026.
Whether you're on the go or listening on your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, you can find the show in the iTunes, Google, and iHeartRadio platforms.
With all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just search Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and get ready to be inspired and motivated to harness your ambition.